And so the challenging part was making it engaging, interesting, making people want to be part of re-looking at their processes. So what we tried to do is take away that anxiety and bring in some fun. So we're like, if we say so, if we call it something fun, then it'll, perk people up, and maybe it'll get them to get involved. So it's been, I think, 5 years now. We launched something called Process Palooza, which is a kind of, hey, everybody, look over here, come over here, and let's all learn about Lean and Lean Six Sigma, how to improve our processes. And, oh, by the way, remember we taught you Lean Six Sigma? Time to roll up your sleeves and work on a real UC San Diego broken process in a competition and, tight timeline and chaotic, kind of noisy environment. And so that's how we got people's attention. So we try to do fun things, call things differently, bring the processes to life.
So Mojgan, was it hard to find broken processes at UC San Diego?
There's a lot of broken processes. What was hard to find was the process owner who is willing to say, my process is broken. Here you go, take it and fix it.
Yeah.
That was the hard part. And so the first time we had Process Palooza, we had to beg and scurry around, and we finally found 2 process owners who were brave enough. And one was all about parking. Parking is a crazy mess. And then the other one was a student leadership process for travel. Yeah. But after that first year, people realized the benefits, and now we have a form that process owners can submit, and now we get to pick processes for the competition. Yeah. I see a hand raised. Oh.
Yeah. Amit, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes. So, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I was just wondering, how do you approach the process creator and let them know that their process can be improved on without offending them? Yeah.
That's a fantastic question. That's why it was very difficult, because it's really easy to point over there and say, oh, their process is broken. Oh, HR is messed. Like, everybody's pointing at somebody else's process, but nobody wants to hear that when it's their process. So we came, like, my position is kind of neutral. I don't have a game in, an HR process. I'm sitting in IT, or I'm trying to do, facilitate process improvement happening in general. So I think a key is to come in from kind of a neutral perspective. Just, we're here for, like, we're doing this thing to improve. Here are some outcomes that we've seen. It's important to show possibly other examples, other quantifiable outcomes, and that approach depends on who you're talking to. Some people are very open after they hear a little bit. Some people, it takes longer time. So it is about maybe a neutral perspective, quantifying, showing something similar that has shown improvement in another area that they can maybe relate to, those kinds of things. But they have to kind of step out themselves. We can't force somebody who owns the process to make a change.
Has there ever been a
No, go ahead, Amit. I was going to follow up, but go ahead.
Well, has there ever been a time where you attempted to fix a process and perhaps your implementation of a new process didn't work out? And how did you kind of like respond to that failure of the attempt to implement a new process?
So what I do and what my team members do and what we train people to do who are facilitating process improvement is to be, again, kind of facilitators and neutral. It's kind of like going and hiring a consultant to come in. So we're not the ones who, we will help paint the picture, but we need to get the right people in the room. So we need to get the subject matter experts or the users of the systems or the people who run the processes. They need to be at the table. They're the ones who are making the decisions. And so when we were in person, it was really nice. We'd have, whiteboards and sticky notes and things everywhere. And so at the end of the day, I'm not the person who is recommending a change. I'm facilitating the discussion to happen. And then it isn't one person saying we need to make a change and oops, it went wrong. It's kind of a group effort. And because the systems I'm talking about are large and impactful, there's like a structure that goes up and gets approval. But with that said, of course, I've had situations where a bad change was introduced. And most of the time, it's not about the change, if the change is good or bad. It's really about change management, as I want to call it. It's getting the communicating what is going to happen, getting the buy-in, getting people kind of priming the pumps for the change to happen. And so then people are more ready for it.
Right. So I was on a phone or a Zoom call earlier today with some of your buddies. We were talking about this lean consortia thing, and so we had people from across the country calling in, and big support showing from the UC San Diego folks, which is something we love. But they were also talking and I sort of forget what it is, but there was sort of like a 3-part approach. Lean, project management, and change management are sort of the 3 things that you sort of teach and support from your organizational standpoint.
Exactly. Those are 3 key pillars.
Yeah. So I want to encourage other folks besides from Ahmed to sort of jump in here and talk to Mojgan about what's going on at UC San Diego and her experience with lean. So Mojgan, so for one of the things I want to hear about a little bit about like what San Diego is doing from a training sort of standpoint, but maybe just specific for you is so. All of a sudden, lean came into your life, sometime 5 or 6 years ago, and you had to get a little bit smarter on that. How'd you do it? Like, where'd your training come from?
So I was lucky. We, as an organization, had selected Lean Six Sigma as the methodology of choice for continuous improvement and process improvement. So that seed was kind of out there already. And so I went no further than our own extension. So UC San Diego Extension teaches green belt, kind of like your class here, a green belt class and a black belt class. So the first thing I did was I told myself, I better go learn what Lean Six Sigma is if I'm going to be encouraging others to get trained. So I went and got my Lean Six Sigma black belt, which included a project that had to save 100K a year over year in savings, hard and soft savings, and all the content of the class. I went through that class myself because I was going to be one of the leaders, but we have a yellow belt class, is a 1-day class, much lower barrier to entry, and we encourage everyone to go through there. I sent 40 at a time, all the way to 500 people through that class. As a university, we have over 4,500 staff members trained in Lean Six Sigma, which is we still have thousands and thousands more people to train, but it helps us communicate together using the same terminology. Yeah, that's helped a lot. But yeah, I went to UC San Diego Extension for my black belt.
Good. And just so folks know too, I think UC Santa Barbara is starting to use your same training and stuff too, right? So it's going out beyond the walls of your university, and other people are picking it up. So
yes.
Let's see, we got a question. So Yanni, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because since you work at such a big university, like how is your team's like thought process and like efforts to making improvements on campus changed from like going completely online from COVID to just like slowly going back to in person and like normal, like life at school, I guess?
It's been interesting. Maybe this is a good time if I can share a screen. Is that
Sure.
okay? All
Yeah,
right.
you're good.
Let me share.
Should be just a little green.
Yeah, I'm just looking for my thing I want to share. Right there. This one. Okay. All right, so this, speaking of a large university, so this is a high level kind of what we call a process landscape at the highest level across, like, these are all the things we do at our university. So we have, you know, academic personnel, et cetera, You go down here, over here, student and teaching and learning, you see those boxes there? So this is the highest level, and so there is a lot going on. We're touching all of this. What we ended up doing is, and I'll show you an example for the student system, and I'll answer your question at the same time. So this is what it used to look like. We used to have sticky notes that would actually fall on the ground, and we had to like just use them there. We had people in the room, etc. And this is what process landscaping looked like pre-COVID, before we went remote. And then this is what it looks like now. We use all sorts of whiteboard. We use Lucid chart. We use something called ProMap. And we have people on Zoom, and it's very interactive, and the sticky notes don't fall on the ground. They stay on the electronic whiteboard. And we're thinking that even when we go back in, because a lot of the staff are not back in person yet at UC San Diego, although the instructors and students are. We're going to keep this method of operation. It encourages a lot more participation when everyone has access to it. Nobody has to stand up and walk around. So that's kind of what we have ended up doing, using a lot of these standard tools. And just really quick, I want to show you an example of how large, you know, some of the stuff we're doing is. So if I just look at the student area, part of that large landscape I was showing, we divided up the functions into these big high-level, level one, pre-enrollment, for example, enrollment, post-enrollment, etc., student finance, teaching, learning, curriculum. And then we go down one by one. So if I want to go into pre-enrollment and start improving some of those processes there, that's like when you're applying to go to UCSD. And so I go to pre-enrollment, we start breaking it down into level 2. Okay, there's outreach and recruitment, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go down to level 3. And at level 3 is where then it becomes the point where we branch off and we start doing the flow charts and the current state mapping and all the variances and things like that.
So each one of those gray boxes could then become like a flow chart or really a specific improvement project, right?
Yes, and it could be multiple flow charts because we have different units doing things differently. So we might have 5 variances to how, you know, the
right.
Whatever, the student health is managed. So then that allows us to look at all those 5 and then come up with the best future state. And then we make that recommendation. Yeah, so every gray box becomes one of those. So that's all of that. I'm just stop sharing.
Well, good. Well, you got a lot to be proud of. Let's see, we got a couple other questions, I think. Yanni, are you good on that? Any follow-up? You good? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Gabby, you got a question?
Yeah, I know in our class, like we're supposed to find a process within our own lives to kind of look at and improve. I was wondering, what is like an example of one of the processes that you worked with at UCSD?
In my IT department,
Yeah.
I can talk about the black belt project that I did, because that's and I wanted to work in it in my own work area. So it is about when a system goes down that we're running and it's causing downstream impacts. So maybe a student can't log in, or something critical happens from a technical perspective. We used to have a situation where then kind of an alert would go out across the entire IT department, and it would be like all hands on deck. Everybody would rally, and there's all these people trying to like fix it, where it was just, they didn't need to all be there. So I basically mapped out the process of why that was happening, what was causing everybody, why was it managed this way. I calculated all those hours of people spending their time and kind of their blended salary rate, and all the time and money we were spending, and the distraction and the lengthy downtime because people would go off on a tangent. But that was an example of what I used for the process improvement in the IT department. So then we came up with a much more streamlined, what we call the major incident management process. We came up with roles and responsibilities. We came up with a way to, the process owner for that area was there with me hand in hand. So he took on some of the control phases that we came up with training and auditing and tracking and all of that. So hopefully that answered your question.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's
thank
a fun
you.
project.
Yeah, good. So Mojgan, I'm looking at the time, and I'm going to try to sort of move towards closure a little bit here. But one thing I wanted to sort of share, and I don't know if this is ready for prime time, but we talked about your next Process Palooza, which is in a year from now. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. So it's going to be in person, and we're talking about trying to get some sort of student competition.
Yes.
Going there. Has your thoughts progressed on that, or is there some stuff you can maybe sort of share a little bit with the students?
Yes. I'm so glad you brought it up. So Process Palooza 2022 will be held November 15th, so exactly almost a year from now. And it will be focused on the student experience. So what we want to do is pick a lot more processes than we've had before for the competition. And we want to have student involvement as far as being kind of like the subject matter experts there, but we also want to have folks at the table in the teams as students. And the requirement for being part of the competition is you have to have at least the Lean Six Sigma yellow belt completed, so that you know what the MAIC means, because that's what you have to practice. And then, so that's the competition part. And then we have conference tracks. And what I would love, like, to work with you on, Eric, is to figure out how we can, one way or another, get you and your students involved. I would love to have a presentation like the one you did for Lean Higher Ed at the conference, for sure, like what you're doing with classes and some of your students. And then for the competition, last year, actually, we did a virtual competition, and we did have people from outside the UC San Diego in some of the teams. It was really interesting dynamics. So yeah, save the date. I'll put it's called processpalooza.ucsd.edu.
Yeah.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah, and you guys that are sort of in this, class now, you'll be a little bit further along in your Lean journey. And, I would encourage you, as you sort of go forward after this class, is to look for, ways to stay connected and different sort of touch points with the Lean community. And this Process Palooza or things like that are good ways to do that. So, Mojgan, thanks for sharing that. So as sort of a closing parting note, you've got, let's see, I'm looking at, we got 48, minus a few of us older folks as far as the next generation of Lean leaders heading out into the world. Is there some specific piece of advice that you might want to share with them?
Yes. my piece of advice is, regardless of where you end up and where you're working, I think take that lean Six Sigma mindset with you. The culture of the organization that you go into may not be open to it, etc. But if you just take snippets with you, like asking why, or trying to get to how this process, why is it working this way, or questioning the status quo. That's one thing. I mean, you don't want to be annoying, but you want to be looking for ways to improve. So making recommendations. The second thing is making, quantifying the problem statement, the ones I heard before. So when I was kind of listening in, being really clear on the problem statement, using data to quantify even like any improvements, use data to make decisions. That's going to basically stand on its own. When you use the data, it's really hard to argue with that. So I just say take these snippets with you. You can use it everywhere, anywhere you go.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Jen, thank you once again. Great job. I apologize for starting my recording a little bit late. We're still working on that. If anybody wants to put that on our check sheet as a another ding or an issue that we can address with some sort of root cause analysis, I welcome that. So, Mojgan, thanks so much, and I definitely look forward to working with you and seeing you back up here in San Luis Obispo again.
Yes,
soon.
Absolutely. Me too. Thank you very much. Nice to meet everyone.
All right. Take care.